sin brought death into the world. And so when we sin, it's like the enemy of our south wraps us up in grave clothes. Sin buries us alive. I asked John if he would help me, just so that we could illustrate this a little bit for this morning. Sin changes things. And Lazarus would have been wrapped up in grave clothes. And so cloths probably quite a bit like this. And I can just imagine the day that he died, they took the grave clothes and they took the spices and they wrapped the grave clothes. And it wrapped, and it wrapped, and it wrapped. Well, we are not in that situation today, and yet there are a lot of people who are, who are living life that's worse than a physical death. And somehow this morning I wanted to bring it down to where we're living and where many friends and maybe some family even live. For you see, my fear is that we allowed the sting of death, which is sin, to mummify our life, to wrap us up. As I was talking about dreams, a lot of dreams have died, and they've kind of by the wayside because we've allowed things to wrap us up. And so oftentimes when we think about sin, we think about the dregs of society, and we talk about all the addictions and the bondages that people have in their life. We could talk about drugs and alcohol and all the meth and different things. We say, well, that really wraps people up. And they do, don't they? But for us today, and as I think about Mary and Martha being middle class, I thought about some other things that we allow to wrap up our lives, that hold us back. And so I could have a long list of things here today, but we could talk about bitterness that wraps us up. We could talk about unforgiveness that wraps us up and holds us captive. I was visiting with a friend probably 2 weeks ago, and she was talking to me about a situation that took place many years ago, and I guess we could classify it as a business dealing. And it does sound like she was taken advantage of. Was never paid for a situation that she had provided a service for. But as they began to talk about it, I could sense in the voice that it was something that they had allowed to bind them down and to wrap them up. And rather than experiencing life the way that God intends for us to experience, they allowed the things to wrap them up. I don't know if you've ever allowed that to happen, but I have. I've allowed some words that have been spoken to me, and although I know because I'm a man of God, I know I have to offer forgiveness in my mind, and I've done it more just going through the motions than really believing it in my heart, I've allowed some of those words to hold me back